Welcome to this very special edition of Strange New Pod. I'm your host, Julian Brown. And if you've been listening to our Star Trek Adventures actual play, Strange New Adventures, then you know me as Game Master as well. Over the past 7 months, along with an amazing group of our Strange New Pod Patreon collective, we've made our way through the Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition starter campaign, just wrapping it up a couple of weeks ago, which makes me so excited. There it is. So delighted, and just all of these other amazing emotions to welcome the writers of that campaign to the show tonight. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm going to give you each your own fancy introduction here. First up, we've got Al Spader, who honestly put this whole away team together, which awesome. Thank you for doing that. Al, you are an RPG designer and writer, as well as a 7th grade science teacher who wrote chapter 2 of the starter campaign, Dare to Be Wise. So that was awesome. Next up, we have Meric Moir, another awesome designer and writer who is also no stranger to a microphone, being a streamer and a podcaster, and an awesome I want your library. Can I put that back here, please? Be awesome. And you wrote the first chapter of this campaign, Incursion Point. And last but certainly not least, we've got writer and podcaster Michael Dismuke, who wrote the thrilling conclusion of the campaign, Whatever Should Be Done Must Be Done, as well as over 20 other Star Trek Adventures publications, which, damn, awesome. Guys, did I say that I'm so excited about doing this interview today? Welcome. It is so good to have you.
I think we were more excited watching you play the game. That was watching that happen was like a dream come true.
Yeah, anytime we get to see someone running something that we put such hard work into, it's just a joy, especially to see like the players, really struggle over scenes and things that we put in that we wanted people to struggle with. But also, Julian, I one of the things that I love is seeing your interpretation and you putting your GM spin on the story that we
Thank
wrote.
you.
Like,
Thank you, really.
Because I've said it a million times. What we put on paper in these products is a suggestion. Mm-hmm. We want the GMs to make it their own.
Yeah, you're the director. Like I enjoyed hearing you talk out like, this doesn't quite work. And this here, like I liked hearing that because we don't expect people to go piece by piece of what we wrote. You have the puzzle pieces, you get to direct it, and then the actors, the players, get to interpret it their way. It's kind of like a writer of a TV show. The director, by the time he gets through the actors, it could come out a little bit different, but still amazing.
I mean, that's the best part about the medium. It's the collaboration, the fact that your story is your story. Even if they're with the parts that we created, it's the stuff that you made with your people, which I will admit I have not had a chance to watch yet. I queued it up a couple of times and then got distracted, but it is on my watch list. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm just still over the moon that you guys were like, holy shit, how did I know this existed, and started watching it and talked Al, I think you found me on Reddit. So one, the kind words, super appreciate. We were actually going to talk about that a little bit more later about GMing and putting your own spin on it. I want to start off though asking you each probably a question you have gotten a lot, but I'm going to ask it anyway, is kind of how each of you came about your love of Star Trek, which is why we're all doing this tonight anyway, and how that then led to you making your way to Modiphius and writing this amazing starter campaign for 2nd edition.
As happens with a lot of people, both of my parents were Star Trek fans. And as a kid, my mom would have the original series playing all the time, and I would just catch the occasional thing with her. And so that was really fun. And then watching the Next Generation movies was kind of where I really jumped in. And then I was that kid who was running home from school to catch Voyager. That was the time that Voyager was on for me. And so I just loved Star Trek and I grew up with it. And when Star Trek Adventures was out, I was really excited. I was in the beta. I was playing the living campaign and doing all those things, but I couldn't really get a group together until I did a streaming mini series where I was like, okay, I'm just doing this now. We're going to do a West Marches style Star Trek, and
nice.
we're going to mix in some Darkest House from Monty Cook Games as a holodeck program. And so that's up on YouTube, called Shadows and Starlight. And I thought that it was such a good place to do a West Marches style campaign because it was an ensemble crew, right? Like, we had a bunch of players who could swap in whenever they were able to play, and they were the ones on the episode for that like night. And on our very first live stream, Jim Johnson showed up and started chatting, and I was like, oh my god, hey Jim, how are you? And got him on my podcast and interviewed and chatted with him, and eventually pitched some writing to him and got involved with these two fine folks.
Pleasure is a pleasure. I got involved with Star Trek because my dad at age 5 and 6, he started me introducing it. I still think I remember my first episode because it sticks out in my mind. Let that be your last battlefield.
Oh, yes.
And I think the reason why is because I'm half black and half white. So I was like, oh, these people are like me. But I was sitting there, but at a very young age, my dad says, do you get it? Do you get the story? And I was remember, and he drove it home. I'm like, yeah, that is stupid, and I think having been so young, getting the social message, and then he told me, watch these and see if you can figure out what they're talking about, and so growing up, I always sat down more like thinking of Star Trek as a stage play. So I've seen every episode multiple times. And then my story is I was building out the continuing missions blog site, which is the #1 site for the game, and with it also a couple other people like Colin Wilson, Tony Pye, some other writers, and we were prolific. We were putting things down there every day. I was interviewing the writers, including Jim Johnson and some of the other writers of the game, Al included. And then finally, Jim, we joked that he wanted to slow me down because I was getting things done faster than he could get through Paramount Production. So he brought me on to write on the game, and it did slow me down because I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop wasting my great ideas on Continuing Mission. I'll put all the leftover there. So now Continuing Mission, just so you know, is usually what's the editor's floor. All those cuts, that's what goes on to Continuing Mission now.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, and like I remember seeing Star Trek 4 in the theater. I remember vague memories of getting the VHS of Star Trek 2 and watching that with my father. And then Next Generation was family time, of course. We watched it all the way through. Admittedly, I got lost on Voyager and DS9 because that happened when I was in college. And you get just so many other distractions when you're doing that. But I did, eventually once I got out of college, I, binge watched them and loved it. And then Picard happened, and that kind of pulled me back into like, this is the world that I love. This is the place I want to be. And, I got caught up in Discovery, which I was very passionate for. And then once COVID hit, a bunch of friends of mine wanted to do a Star Trek game online. And so we used Tabletop Simulator on Steam. They have a Star Trek Adventures port. And so like I was putting up screenshots of our table that was in Tabletop Simulator. And that's when Michael said, hey, do you want to come on to this panel and talk about this? And I was like, sure, why not? And it just so happened that Jim was on that panel, Jim Johnson, who's the project manager for Star Trek Adventures and line editor. And eventually he wanted my insight as someone that was coming into the game new, who had played Dungeons and Dragons for like the last 10 years. On the Shackleton campaign book. And so, I provided him some honest feedback, the stuff that I liked, the stuff that confused me. And I think he took it well that when I said, I don't get this. Like, what does this mean? I think this could be said better and things like that. And after that, he asked me to do my first mission brief pack. So, it's because Michael had me on that panel, and then, we really hit it off from there.
That's awesome. It sounds like everybody's got a Jim Johnson story, who I've yet to actually meet, but he's definitely like the glue, I think, that puts us all together, because the amount of interactions I've had with him online without actually getting to have him on the show yet, which is, I think, my fault more than anything.
Have him on
Yeah,
the show.
I got
seriously.
to. I have to. He's great. He answers every single question that I think I've ever answered. We've DM'd. Like he's awesome. He's absolutely incredible. I also love. I think we're all pretty much like TNG babies, if I'm getting that right, pretty much. So Al, like my TOS. Yeah, you said
Star
that's
Trek
right.
TOS. I really did.
Al, my first movie experience was someone handing me a VHS. I was put in front of the TV to watch TNG basically in diapers, but my first TNG memory or my first movie memory is my aunt handing me a VHS of Undiscovered Country that was taped, I think, like on Cinemax. And I watched that. So it's my favorite Trek movie because of that. So love the VHS stories. Al, I want to stick with you for a second, because as we were setting on a date for this interview, Michael had mentioned in emails about that you have an anecdote about how one, in his words, a simple scene from Strange New Worlds brought you all together in the writer's room that would then become this starter campaign. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, when we got the email from Jim asking us to do this, the three of us were like, yeah, can we start tomorrow? So the three of us and Jim got together in a Zoom call just like this to start literally like pitching ideas. And Jim was just going to sit back and be a fly on the wall and let us do our thing. And we started coming up with all these ideas and who the antagonist should be and things like that. And one of the things that I found fascinating, like lots of times in Star Trek, there are little lines that seem like throwaway lines that people don't really pay attention to, but I think they carry a lot of meaning if you sit back and think about them. Well, in Those Old Scientists, the episode when, the lower decks folks come into the real world, that device, that Bosium time travel device, they were trying to figure out what it was. And there was basically a throwaway line from Uhura, I think, about saying, well, there's Nausicaan writing on this, right? But it didn't seem like it was originally a Nausicaan device. So we started saying, well, Nausicaans haven't really been flushed out like in the show at all, right? They show up, they're bodyguards, they're thugs. So can we use that little bit of information to kind of develop a little bit of the Nausicaan culture? And that's when we decided that we wanted to have a Nausicaan archaeologist be like the main antagonist here.
I'm actually going to go a bit out of order since you said that, because Michael, our brave as fuck Ensign Tanan during our adventure, who almost did get killed during our adventure, by the way, epically. He wanted to know how that choice was made to make kind of the main antagonist besides the Bryozoans, the Nausicaans in the adventure. And I guess that's partly the answer is this portal.
Yeah, so Urataxa, I love powerful women and I love super intelligent women, and now I really love super intelligent, powerful Nausicaan women. And we had talked about that. Like we said, let's delve not into the thug, but let's go super scientific and also make it so that people could launching out of this also launch into like, wait a second, we learned a lot of clues, like that art piece that's sitting behind me. That was done. The art. Oh man, I forgot the artist right now. I'll look it up later. But I actually looked up Gorn, Herc, Klingon, and Nausicaan iconography that I could find and sent it to them. And I said, make it so that people playing the game can unravel that. Is there a connection? I don't know. It's just obviously there was. Was it temporary? Was it permanent? And so even if you look at Urataxa's focuses, I had really even said, let's go into some crazy focuses, break away from the book and what it says on focuses, and let's just break down her archaeological skills and trimetric fractures, and really build a character that people can just go into the weeds with. That was really my goal. So between that little piece, I hope one day someone does a play to what Al had sparked our interest with Those Old Scientists. Maybe they'll find a connection between Urataxa and that, and that was kind of everything spun out of that little piece of archaeology from that show.
Yeah, and I think to make interesting cultures, you take what we know and we twist it a little bit, right? So to have, Starfleet, whose archaeologists are scientists tried and true. We have to preserve these specimens. We have to make sure that we treat them with care and make sure. Whereas the Nausicaans, they kind of experiment with the past, right? They find these artifacts and they use them. That's how they, that's how they communicate what happened in the past, is by using the stuff that they find. And to make that little twist, to make that just a little bit different from the science that your players are going to be used to, I think that really helped Urtaxa become a really cool character.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, getting to do this campaign, and like when I got to kind of play her as my role in the GM, like finding her voice was really fun. I'm still like working on that, but man, she was a lot of fun. She was a really fun character.
It helps if you.
I know. I'm just gonna do this next time. Do the Bane. The darkness rises. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. No, her
I
mandibles
was-
move, so you got to go like that.
I was going to ask you, like, how did it feel in the first chapter where we introduce Orotoxa? Like, I was trying to make her very much be this lovely gray character where you're not sure. Like, maybe she's going to help you. Maybe she is. But like juxtaposing her against the like clearly privileged, like upper echelons of that mining group kind of made her feel more real to me. So I wanted to know, how did that feel to you? Like, did that land? What did you do with it?
No, that totally landed. The one thing that if I ever go back and run this again, I would change is I was kind of like trying to explore, having like NPCs as guest stars. So like I actually had my wife come in and play the Orion, and I had my wife the first time actually play Orotoxa, and that was fun. But then I'm like, you know what? When we find out what she did later on and through the rest of the book, like I'm like, no, I'm gonna play her. So, but it's still, yeah, it's still, I knew exactly what was happening. Like this play, what made that interesting is the way that Fef played Commodore Zen, and how she was, even though I think like she was coming off as that kind of like gray, I think that she's trying to do something good here, but maybe not. Commodore Zen just wasn't taking the bullshit from either of them, and that was like, okay, that's the way we're going. That's the way we're going.
By the way,
So-
perfect captain. I was amazed.
Yeah.
Oh man,
She's amazing.
What amazing.
She's
So-
always like, after we record, she's always like, Fef, I really hope you don't mind if I say this. I don't think you will. She's always like a little bit unsure of like how she done. Like, you were amazing. Like you were great. This is, I love how you're interpreting this character so much.
Yeah, and Meric, you'll see at the end of episode 2 when the reveal hits, the players, it's that scene is so great, and then like
I'm excited.
everything changes. Like there was nothing. We need to find Orotoxa. There, like that is it. Forget
Good.
everything else.
Literally, it was,
good.
yeah.
It was
The
great.
layering, the
Yeah.
story, the
Yeah.
growth. I love it.
Yeah.
So-
Meric, I want to stick with you here because I want to talk about Incursion Point, the very first chapter. This is really cool especially for players who never played, I think, Star Trek Adventures the first time, because it starts with you beaming right down onto Cressida, and I really like that. And of course, it says this is a great first chance to do combat, and they're like, no, we're gonna try and talk to them. Like, of course, every single time, by the way. But I wanted to kind of like talk to you about putting the players in that position right at the very beginning, and the whole every single act of Incursion Point, just like, it's really nonstop, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, the like really wanted to ratchet that tension every single time and be like, you're almost successful, where you're like, we almost did it, something hits us hard.
Yeah.
Now we got to react. And we're almost going to solve that one, something hits again. And just like that adrenaline thrill ride is like that strange new world storytelling that I wanted to capture in the very first one. Because, and this was a strategy between all three of us and Jim, we knew the themes and the styles that Al and Michael were going to be bringing in chapters 2 and 3. So we were like, let's just pedal to the metal in chapter 1 and teach people the rules and go. And like, one of my favorite sequences in it is the shuttle going down to the falling part of
Dude,
the mine. Like, it's
you
so
just
much
read my
fun.
mind. I was going to say my favorite part of running that was the falling platform and them having to deal with that and panicking a little bit about like
Yeah.
what to do. And I'm like, that's kind of the point. I'm glad that you're panicking a bit.
In
Yeah.
one of my like, Star Trek Adventures is definitely that kind of game because it's Starfleet where generally you succeed. But when I was doing my playtest, my players were like, we got to pull out of this. Like, they were
okay.
worried.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key is I love when people roll the dice and cheer. Or they roll the dice and like, oh no, it just got so much more. And I love both of those emotions are great. I want to go back to something Meric was saying about learning the rules as you play. I thought it was really good during one of our workshops. We said which rules are most important for them to learn in what order. That was actually the first decision that was made. And then from there, we divvied up since I knew I had like part 3. Okay, we're gonna wait until part 3 for ship to ship battle. That's one of the more complex mechanics people say in it. And so it was built in that way. So that was kind of fun, actually. I thought being given like, oh, these are your elements to work with and teach it along the way. I thought that was a really new GMs who are wondering what to run this one because it's very deliberate on how we build on every single mechanic. Not every single, but the main core rulebook mechanics. It's very deliberate.
Yeah. That starter set journey of this might be the first time that you've ever picked up a role-playing game before. And so it was deliberate. Yeah.
Was it the first time someone in your group played Star Trek Adventures? Can I ask, Julian?
So everybody in that group was brand new to Star Trek Adventures. And I'm actually going to talk about this a little later, but that was also my first time ever GMing anything.
What?
Ever GMing anything? Okay,
Anything.
cool.
What?
Yeah.
That just made my heart leap.
Yeah.
That is so because I honestly thought you all were like polished, like edition 1 players.
No.
I was like, oh, they're so into it and they get it. Wow.
Some veteran D&D players in the group.
Right.
But
still
no Star Trek Adventures. And the only TTRPG that I'd ever played was a few D&D one-shots. Like that was my experience. Part of the reason that I went on this journey to begin with was so many of my friends, and I had a podcast before Strange New Pod, were hardcore into D&D and like always tried to get me to play. And I'm like, I just don't know if I have the time. Like, I don't know if I have like the energy to do it. And they kept on talking to me about it. And then like Critical Role got huge. And like, honestly, in 2024, I just started having like really big FOMO because like I'm a theater kid. Like I was a theater major. I love doing this kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? My New Year's resolution isn't going to be anything about like health or like quit drinking or, you know, go on a diet. It's like, no, I'm going to play D&D. I'm going to play Star Trek Adventures. Like my old co-host bought me the set and I'm like, I'm going to do this finally. And I did. And now I can't get enough. So,
yeah, that'll happen.
yeah. It's kind of crazy. Al, I want to bring it back to you because for lack of a better term, you're there he is. Okay. You're the PB&J in this adventure. You're in the middle here. I want to talk about how much I love this all because I think Dare to Be Wise is my favorite part of the campaign simply because of as one of my players, Jesse, put it, who played Lieutenant Hernandez. What happens when Lieutenant Hernandez rolls a bunch of 1s instead of all those 20s? Because this is the part of the game that almost killed them. Like literally they almost died. With just, they rolled so poorly. You're like, you DM, it's like, how the fuck did they do that? Which honestly, like in my opinion, made it a more exciting chapter in the campaign. And I think pushed them both as players and definitely me as the GM to have to navigate that and come up with complications. I mean, it's a real, like, Dare to Be Wise is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so Dare to Be Wise was really, really challenging, right? Because we knew how we wanted to start with a bang. We knew how we were going to wrap things up, and I knew that I wanted to like put some more emphasis on the colony and these Bryzoans, right? And like these creatures are like ideas that I had from long ago, where basically these little tiny individuals each act as neurons, and as they link up, they start gaining consciousness, right? And so I started pitching that idea in the writers' room, and Michael came up with the. He's kept saying, "Let's get weirder, let's get stranger," and so the concept of these sentient beings don't want to be sentient anymore. They just want to float and do their thing. Was really Michael's idea, and I thought it was just such a neat, unique thing that they're getting frustrated that this resonance is forcing them to come together and become sentient because they're tired, right? They don't want to deal with it anymore. They just want to exist. Which again, that takes what we know as players and what we care about as players and flips it on its head, right? Um, so that was really a group coming together to really flush out the colony. First of all, second of all, I knew that we wanted to deal with linear challenges in this adventure, so we got two of them in there, and this would be like really focused on how do you use the ship, and how is the ship a character in your party, right? So we start with the asteroid stuff, and then we get into the really weird trimetric fracture stuff, right? Which, by the way, trimetric fracture is from Voyager, from a single episode of Voyager, that was basically a dimensional rift that sucked the Voyager into chaotic space. And so we wanted to, utilize that thing that was used once ever, and make it a part of this story and say, well, what if these creatures are traveling through the different dimensions and whatnot, and using these trimetric fractures to travel. Yeah, it was really fun to write. You got to do some world building as well. Like when I pitched the this image behind me of the Bryzoans coming together to form like a humanoid like form, I had no idea it would look this cool.
Oh, it's so awesome.
So good.
They gave me like so much inspiration on like how to like play the Bryozone too. It was just seeing that is awesome. I love the
And
green.
and I think like it also like for new players like show like get them to think about that communication happens in many different ways, right? So that linear challenge where you're trying to create a device that can somehow interpret what this thing is trying to say, and without spoiling anything, finding the minute things that it is doing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a really fun way to share a Star Trek experience with new players.
Yeah. And I really, one of the systems that I liked the most were those linear challenges. I actually liked them so much. I actually think I introduced them a scene or two early because I'm like, you know what? This is such a cool system. It works really well. I think for something previous, we're going to just learn it now. And I know that they like that because they were able to then like do it for this and it worked. And they're like, okay, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So Michael, I want to talk to you going all the way to the end, putting the bow on the campaign. First I want to talk about Starbase 323 because I tried to make 343. We actually recorded a whole epilogue to Incursion Point that we didn't release. And I tried to make like 343 kind of like futuristic-y, like Yorktown. But then we went to 323 and I really wanted to give it this like lived in, not quite like Starbase 80 from Lower Decks, but like really all different species, like almost like a bazaar. I
Thank
really
you. Bazaar's
loved
the word.
yeah. It was a really fun Starbase to play, and I love how my players played in it. And then the Shadow Maw Nebula and like the tendrils, and then finally the archaeology on the planet. Like this is a very big finale and a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah. And I actually wanted to start with a couple elements. We also wanted to deal with Badmirals, right?
Yes.
And command structure. Because I was thinking the first time someone plays a game, like I've sat around with people playing Star Trek Adventures for the first time. And sometimes, if they're picking up a Starfleet crew, they need to learn how to play military and the repercussions if you piss off the Badmiral.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to start there. It's like, because chapters 1 and chapter 2 were so huge. what were the repercussions of that? I wanted them to have to look back on their actions and explain, if there were mistakes that were made, I wanted them to see what that looks like when you have to sit down in front of your admiral, or if it becomes a JAG hearing. It's just the opportunity to take a breather, after all that action. And then I had the goals of also working on extended tasks and making sure people understood how extended tasks work. So, we built collecting clues, and using the extended task of having to explore 323 to get clues to find out where Urataxa went, pursuing her. And then I love those scenes in the Kelvin verse movies, or now Strange New World, where you see the ship from more angles than there's underneath, on top, a front, or behind, like because of production dollars we only could see in the 80s and 90s. So I wanted that feel where that ship can turn in any direction and there's obstacles. We wanted to teach them how to use a zoning map, for if you're playing tabletop and stuff like that. And I just wanted to get weirder and weirder. And I don't know if anyone noticed it, if you read, when you look through the book, I ask a lot of questions. I don't like telling answers. I like leaving a bunch of questions so that now your team can make it what they want out of the game. So I wanted to show. And it ends abruptly. I just leave you all with a problem. It's like, yep, this is your problems. Solve it. Bye. And of course, watching how they solved it was epic and exactly what I dream of. And what's cool is I know that 20 different people are going to solve it different ways. Or Atoxa might be a hero at the end, a villain, come on the ship, be a fugitive. I really wanted to leave it up to game masters and players to design their own game and their story. So hopefully, you got that, and hopefully you're scared of the Shadow Maw Nebula.
It was scary, and I actually I loved that they rolled a complication while they were in it, getting to the planet, because I got to utilize one of the tendrils. I wish I got to use those more, but that was a really fun scene because I could really mess them up, and it threw them for a loop. So yeah. Very well done.
I don't think I've ever said to you, Michael, that when I ran this for my group at home at the table, one of the things I appreciated that you did, and this has been an ongoing conversation, Julian, for a while among Star Trek Adventures players, is what do I do with my doctor? What do I do with my ship's doctor? Right? Because they're not always going to be a part of everything. And so Michael actually took the time to put in a sidebar for the sand fleas, which you could.
We didn't use, but yeah.
Right. But it's there. If you need something for your doctor to do and they're stuck on the ship, there you go. There's the problem they solved. And my doctor wanted to stay on the ship. And so I started throwing, those coconuts at him, I'm like, okay, these people are coming back. They've got these rashes, and so I appreciate that you did that, Michael. And I'm sure that, many players will as well.
Your very recognizable TNG B plot.
Always.
Oh, 100%.
Always have to have a B plot. Always.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about B plots, because I think part of the reason I didn't use that was this epilogue that we recorded. I had planned for this really, and this is what happens with GMs and their players all the time, which I've learned very quickly. I just planned for a chill. Everybody gets some cool character moments on the starbase, and then we're going to move on. And then the character, actually, Commodore, being the badass that she is, through the whole thing for a loop. And I don't want to spoil things too much, Meric, if you do end up listening, but something happens so unexpected that I actually needed to create an entire Section 31 subplot to throw into the campaign. And again, I don't want to spoil too much, but we're actually going to come back to this crew in about a year, because I've started writing a whole campaign based around that subplot.
I was wondering if you were going to dive into the mission briefs that are we were each required to write one mission brief to add on to that. So
I probably will end up utilizing one of them in what I did. But part of the reason I got inspired to write this new one is the Discovery book was on sale, and there was a brief in there about a couple of murders. Yeah. So between the brief and the subplot that I had to create, I was like, I have this crazy cool idea for a brand new campaign. So we're actually going to come back to this crew, not now, but on probably next 2026, 2027, because we're doing an original campaign in the TNG universe starting in 2026. Nice. But This is a two-part question I have for you guys. Fafu played Commodore Zen during the adventure, wanted to know, when it comes to the 2D20 system itself, why SDA decides to go with, and I don't know if this is necessarily a question that you guys would be able to answer, but I thought I'd ask anyway, to go with nat ones instead of the traditional nat 20 as crits. And like using this, like, you want to roll lower rather than higher, because I liked it personally, but I know it threw them, at least at the beginning. I'm like, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, so I think whenever you are looking at a what they call a roll under system, right? You are looking at combining stats to make a bigger number. So that's your bigger number, right? Is your stats, not your bonuses plus your die. And so when you have a system like that where you're combining stats together and you are rolling dice, it's hard to say that you roll above that number. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I think that when Nathan put the system together, he knew that he was going to say, I'm taking these two stat points and combining them together. We're roughly going to have between 13 and 17 as target scores. So to make it make sense, he had to do roll under. And when you're rolling under, the lowest that you roll is the best dice roll.
I don't know any of the inside development, but I can speculate on the fact that your percentage sort of success rate is so nicely bounded
Mhm.
that it models realism more. Whereas D&D, where you roll and you add, models heroic stories better, where the scale goes up. And I mean, Star Trek, the scale goes up, but the scale goes up so high when you're at like a Q that numbers don't matter.
Right.
So to me, choosing that roll under system and getting those clear bounds are a stronger way to just show how Starfleet operates day to day.
Those are really good explanations. I choose to believe that Nathan Dowdell is from the Mirror Universe. He's a Terran, and
Fair.
that's his tell.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, and I think that it makes sense though about, like, especially when it comes to D&D, like rolling these heroic numbers. Whereas like this, when you do roll high and you do create these complications, it is very Star Trek. It's like it creates climaxes and it creates like the unknown. And I really liked that playing the system. So I thought that was great, Meric. This leads kind of to the next part of this question and how I ran the game and how you guys feel about mix and matching. Because Michael, you mentioned extended tasks, and that's something that I had a really hard time with in the game, and I know my players did too. Mainly me. Full disclosure, I am math special needs, really hard for me. So like trying to put that all together, I'm like, I can't really figure this out. And I tried to like get them to explain it to me, and they couldn't really explain it to me either. So I'm like, okay, I'm really getting into Daggerheart as well. So I'm gonna throw some Daggerheart in here. I'm gonna do a countdown die instead of the extended task.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah.
You did that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just so you know, and I think all of us probably do, and Merrick had talked about it when he started playing the Living Campaign, bring other game systems into it. I know for our game, that I played with Al for 5 years, and there was some captain's log dragged in there at times, or Starforged helped me
Oh,
create
nice.
stuff. I've seen some really creative solutions. I think, to the point, Julian, I'll never tell someone they're playing the game wrong unless no one's having fun. Then they're
Yeah.
playing it wrong. But if they're having fun, I don't care if they want to play with wet noodles to decide things. Have a blast. So I really appreciated you creating that into a teachable moment for other people watching. It's like, hey, do what you need to do. If a mechanic's a little too hard, or you just don't have time because maybe people are rushed, they don't want to take notes, you
Right.
don't have mathematics. Find something else. It's totally cool. Use Rochambeau if you got to.
Yeah. No, and like I like because I like the Daggerheart countdown system quite a bit. And then near the very end when we ran combat in the second to last episode, I know that they felt a little bit like not sure how initiative works. And I actually just did a poll, which I wasn't expecting to get the answers from. Like, do you guys like not having initiative, or do you like initiative? And everybody voted for initiative. So I'm like, okay. So you know what? We're going to just try. I don't know if I'm going to keep it, but we're going to try just D&D initiative. And we did it in the finale, and I had some issues. Like, I didn't personally like doing it. I actually like the more free-flowing idea. That's very Star Trek Adventures. That's also very Daggerheart. But we tried it, and I think that that's like cool, throwing these elements into there.
So one of the things. Oh,
Okay.
go ahead, Michael.
I was going to tease and joke. I said, there's only one thing I saw, Julian, that when they read the rules, they're going to be like, oh, what a rip. And that on the assist dies, you didn't give them the momentum.
Was I not supposed to?
No, you can. You should.
Oh, damn it. I always mix that up. See, I was going to ask you guys about that if I was messing that up, and I did. Okay. They're going to kill me.
The game was amazing, and they had fun. You did not mess it up.
Thank you.
I'm just doing this so that they razz you next time.
They are, they're going to. They're so good at doing that already.
What I was going to say is, like, say you want, like, you've tried D&D initiative in Star Trek Adventures. You've done this thing with the assist where the momentum is not doing. That can be an intentional choice for a specific scene where you can say, you know what, we're using Star Trek Adventures free-flowing sort of initiative system most of the time, but then when you get into a scene where you're against the Borg and every second counts, maybe you do go into something that's a little bit more rigid. Like, you can play with your session by mixing and matching rules from other games.
Oh, we've used risks. We've used risk rules to do fleet combat. Yep. So we've rolled dice against each other just to wipe out fleets really quick.
That's awesome. I love that.
Julian, I might recommend to you this book right here. It's the Federation Klingon War Tactical Campaign. This was the book that I was the lead writer on. It was the last book for first edition, but 90% of it is completely already set up for second edition. And what I did in there is I created a chapter of optional rules. And I think there's like 6 different ways you can run initiative. There's like 4 or 5 different ways to run ship combat, to deal with power and all that type of stuff. The alternate rules in there's a lot of really fun stuff for people who prefer a more tactical type of game, or that are coming from more tactical type of games where initiative matters. So I'll put in a plug for that book.
Nice.
Awesome. It's a good book. I love that book.
I haven't read a bad book from Star Trek Adventures. No, like, I'm not saying that because you're here. Like, I haven't read a bad book. Like, I love reading these books.
Just so you know, when we write them, and Meric saw the experience here, I refuse to write anything I'm not going to play.
Right.
If I don't get, and we talk about it all the time, like, no, it's like we panicked so much. Even when I was doing Captain's Log, he was doing Federation Klingon War at the same time. And it was just like, no, it just doesn't work. And we have some really good feedback partners. So just know that a lot of energy goes into them. We're not just, even though there's a lot of them, they're just not spitting them out. It's just like, we're very self-critical.
And everybody that writes for the line loves the IP, right? Like, everybody, it's not just people trying to get a job, right? It's everybody who writes loves Star Trek and tries to show that on every page.
I think that's abundant and crystal clear on every page for sure.
I'll throw in this fact because I love to brag about it. Like, we're all talking about how Star Trek is a family thing, right? Like, we all did it with our families and so on. I do Star Trek Sundays with my kids, where every Sunday we put out a snack plate and we watch 2 episodes, probably. We watch through like 3/4 of TOS, and we're watching every episode of TNG. We're almost at the end of season 3.
Nice.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. That's awesome.
And there's something else we do also when we write it. Jim Johnson pushes us that every line and every paragraph, if you were to stand alone read it, it could become its own adventure. Like, there should be enough meat in there that you can be like, oh, I can extrapolate out of this. And that, I think, really boils it down to like the goodness.
He also really pushes us to do new things, right? So admittedly, I have not felt confident in my writing of sidebars from a character perspective. It's just been something that I have trouble finding a character's voice. And you know what? Jim said, well, guess what? Now you have to write 5 of them. He's like, you're going to do it. Yeah. and so so that is really exciting to me, that he sees he's trying to make us better writers by challenging us. And so that, he's been such a great mentor to all of us. And I don't think any of us would be, where we are today as far as writing in the industry goes without him.
Yeah. I um the project that I worked on for Star Trek Adventures after the starter set was the Department of Temporal Investigations briefs. And it was actually the thing that I pitched first to Jim. And I had one great idea, and he's like, "Yes, you should do a DTI briefs thing. Write me up a number of pitches, and here are some books to read that will help you with some DTI stuff." And so I went and I picked up the book and I read it and I did all these things. And it was a really exciting and fun process to give these like 10 pitches. And then he'd be like, "These three are great. These three need these changes. Ditch these two and give me more." Like that was fun. It was exciting. And he was really good at drawing, like you said, Al, drawing that additional creativity and like growth out of you. So thanks, Jim.
Got to have Jim on the pod. That's next on the list.
You know what? You ask him once, he'll be here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Just keeping on the subject real quick, like every time I see a review of one of the books, it's always people are like, even if you don't play the game, it's just a great book to read, which I think is absolutely true. And that's a testament to you guys. So
No, can we talk about that for a second? So
yeah, of course.
The Star Trek technical manual that came out, the TNG technical manual, the Deep Space Nine, those books that came out, really the last batch of them came out in the 90s, where like the Voyager ship, where it breaks down Voyager and stuff like that. Those are such key essential books for everybody. Like, and one of the things we all kind of agreed on early on is these needed to be, I don't want to say replacements of, so I guess we would say children of these books, because new people coming into Trek, honestly, we think about neurodivergence and how people consume information now. I like the TNG technical manual, but honestly, it's a lot of words, and those Steinbach and Okuda did a great job on it. It's not how people consume. So we make a lot of effort where we want to explain every single facet of Star Trek in these books, and there's limited space. So if you got to see what's cut out, it's probably the equal amount of information that's been put in so far. So it seems like there's never a lack of stuff to do. Even getting like someone mentioned the Federation duck blind I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and we had written in a Federation. I got to write a Federation duck blind into the elevated edict. I've been dying to get a duck blind in there, and design a duck blind. So there's all these treasures in there. Every space is so limited that we have to get as much of our Star Trek love into and how the world works, all this world building. And I think that's what it is. Even when people don't play the game, they're picking it up and they're seeing world building, how HR works, how department science, engineering work. And I think that's what makes the books so relevant.
Nice. I know that we've kind of already talked about this. I want to maybe go a little bit more in depth because I know Jesse, who played Lieutenant Hernandez, wanted to know like kind of the full process of fleshing out not just a campaign, but like this is really important. Again, this is where a lot of players are going to come to first, being a starter campaign, and what the process is like writing for Star Trek, especially where we've just been talking about all the different possibilities that come within this franchise, right? And then so many of the other choices from what you guys write, which again, they're suggestions, they're not the guideline. All the different choices the players can make from those. Like there's got to be a challenge with writing a campaign like this, right? Like for example, Commodore Zen in our finale, in our second to last episode, sending down 2 hotheads to negotiate with Ortoxa. Like probably not what you expected, but like I thought it was epic.
I think when we start designing, right, we talk about the tropes, right? And what tropes do we want to play with? And I know we also looked at what core mechanics we needed to focus on. So those were all put up on a spreadsheet before we even started laying out story, right? And like Michael said earlier, as we are telling the story, we want to leave questions open, and we want to leave those little spots where players can diverge based off of their interest, based off of what they think they're finding cool about the story. And I think you do see that in every adventure in the starter set. Now, traditionally, when you have a new player coming to a game, they're typically going to follow what we prescribe. Typically, that's not always the case, but new players, new GMs tend to follow the script word for word. So we made sure that we laid it out in such a way that the core mechanics built upon each other, and that we got all the tropes smattered along the way.
There's also the mechanic built into the game of threat. And
Yeah.
I love the threat mechanic
Me
because
too.
you can throw a reversal, you can do a reveal and get, if they're starting to get off, too far off, you can kind of reveal things or reverse things to get them back on track. But I mean, with 38 years plus of RPG experience and one of my very first players being a chaos being, where he purposely was constantly trying to go figure out what I was trying to do just to mess me up. I think kind of trained me to be like, let them, if that's what's fun in a game for them is just trying to, outwit things and come up with crazy solutions. Well, that's Star Trek too, right? So we prepare for that in a game, but it has to be a game master really assessing the crew and seeing what kind of game they're looking for. Some people want a lower decks campaign.
Yeah.
And I think one of the like key skills in adventure writing is not to create a solution. Like Al was saying, leaving those questions open and leaving those things open. And that plays really, really well with Star Trek, where the best solution is when they say, but if we do this and this and this together, it can do it. And you're never going to be able to like foresee what the players are going to do. So you set up a clear obstacle or challenge. You make sure that they're invested enough to engage in it. And then your outcome is, did the players succeed? Here is the result. But the how they do it and the details of the result, that's the secret sauce awesomeness of playing an RPG. So we leave that to the GM wherever we can.
Yeah. And I consistently, when they succeed or fail, I ask them, why did you succeed and why did you fail?
Yeah.
You explain that, right?
Yeah.
And that gets them into the storytelling stuff, which helps also.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you said you mentioned threat, because I think threat mechanic, and I hate to keep mentioning it during a Star Trek Adventures interview, but like I started playing Star Trek Adventures and Daggerheart at the same time, so it's like threat and fear are very similar, and it's just like it's a really great mechanic to have in both of those games. I really enjoy it quite a bit. Mentioned earlier that this was my first time GMing ever. So I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to past me and new GMs wanting to play Star Trek Adventures or really any TTRPG for the first time?
Be excited for what your players are doing. It's never like what they're doing is always going to be more fun if you are also engaged in it. It's going to be more fun for them. It's going to be more fun for you. Like people say all the time about the yes anding of improv, and it's just like have some joy when you're doing that. If you tell a player who says a wild thing, yeah, whoa, what are we doing? The entire table locks in. And like that's my biggest like advice. It applies to every system. It's just be there to have fun with other people. I don't know. I can't speak to you specifically. I'm really again looking forward to watching your game, but like to anybody who is trying to get into TTRPGs or maybe want to GM for the first time, like just be there to have fun.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is your players aren't going to know that you messed something up unless you say something.
Yeah.
So if you just keep going, right, and you find another solution or you bring them back another way, um, the players won't know the difference, right? As long as they're having fun and being able to play their characters and interact with the story, you may have missed a beat in your, initial setup. Don't let that ruin the rest of your game because they're not going to know that you missed it and you can just bring them back to it. Like I think that's a very important thing as a GM is to recognize that, right? And I think that sometimes you can kind of get thrown off if you're like, oh, I forgot to read this part out loud, right? Don't let that mess you up. Like just keep going, and then you can come back to it another time. Have a NPC say the information, or have it show up on a computer screen, things like that. So the only person that knows that you messed up is you, unless you tell someone else.
Yep, and never underestimate the power of the bio break. Like, oh, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom first. When
Yeah.
they really screw up and you like don't know what to do, just say, oh, hey, let me go to the bathroom real quick break, get some drinks, go to the bathroom, sit on the toilet, and be like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of
Real Al, that was the same advice that one of my drum teachers told me one time. It's like, if you mess up while drumming, just do the same thing again. Nobody will ever know.
There you go. Yeah. And my advice is session zero continues. I say this every time someone asks me this. The GM deserves to have as much fun as the player. So you got to go around, you got to ask everyone, what do you want out of the game? What do you want out of the game? What do you want out of the game? What do I, as a GM, want out of the game? You're not there to serve them. You're not there to just drain your energies using all your creative power to try to entertain them. You're there to entertain each other. So they have to understand they have a responsibility and have to make some agreements about, like you were talking about, chaos beings, right? Nowadays, I would be like, well, you know what? We're not playing that kind of game. I know you want to go Mako every day, but that's not what we're playing. So let's discuss this, because that's not fun for these three people. And we're adults now. And so that's an important thing, is have that session zero, check in before games, after 3 sessions. How's it going? What did you like? Where do you want to discover next? Here's what I'd love to write about. And you're going to have if you can get a group that coordinates like that, you're going to have really good games.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned session zero, because that's one thing in this year that I've been playing now, basically, that there's videos. It's in almost every book that you read, have a session zero. And listen, though, we just played the starter campaign for 7 months, and we're going to go into the campaign that I wrote in a month or so, and we're still going to have a session zero. Like we are going to talk about it. They know the plot. Do they know the plot? I don't actually know if they fully know the plot yet, but they've made characters. They know our ship, but like, we're still going to talk about it, because we all do need to be on the same page. And I agree so much that the GM should be having as much fun as the players. Because if you're not, then honestly, like, what's the point? Yeah, no, it's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it so much, and
Well,
I've
you
enjoyed.
did, like I said, I couldn't tell you hadn't played it before. You were. It was really enjoyable to watch. It was fun.
And once you start your next campaign, if you need a Badmiral or an NPC, one shot character, you got some people right here that would be willing to jump in and play those characters.
I might need
Bring Uratoxa back. I'll play her.
Well, Michael, I don't want to spoil too much, but Uratoxa is absolutely back in when we come back to this crew. She is back in a big way. So, yeah. No, actually, I'm gonna need an Admiral Jellicoe. We're taking this campaign. I'm really inspired by Kirsten Byers' short trek Children of Mars, and also the finale and her book Last Best Hope, as well as the finale of Star Trek Prodigy and Star Trek Picard. This takes place in the hours and days right after the synth attack on Mars. So going to be a really fun setting, I think. Obviously, I want to give you guys each a moment to talk about any upcoming projects you have, where people can find you, what you're doing. I'm just going to go clockwise here. Start with you, Michael.
Sure. So you can see all my stuff at michaeldismuke.com. Lots of, like, as you mentioned, over 20 publications related to Star Trek Adventures. Also, I get the privilege to work with Al on his project Sentience, which is amazing. I'll let him talk about that, and various other RPGs I do writing. I'm looking forward to 2026. It's the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and I can't talk about what I'm working on, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be life-changing, and it will. I think the announcement comes out in February 2026, so look for it.
I'm going to write that down. Meric, how about you?
At the same time that I was getting involved with Star Trek Adventures, I was also getting involved with the Cosmere RPG. So the licensed RPG based on Brandon Sanderson's books. And the first setting is the Stormlight Archive, which, hey, those are the books. They are officially in retail as of November 12th, just 2 days ago.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I came on as an adventure writer at first and just kept doing things, and I became the lead writer for the Mistborn setting. So been working on Mistborn for the last year. That comes out in 2026. And this summer, I was hired full-time by Brotherwise Games as the director for the Plot Weaver RPG.
So amazing.
So cool.
Thank you. The Cosmere RPG is based on the Plot Weaver system designed by Andrew Fisher, who is a designer behind Warhammer Fantasy and Star Wars, Edge of the Empire, and various other things. And so we're taking Plot Weaver out of licensed games and into some other stuff that I can't quite talk about yet. But we have a team coming together to develop really, really cool things over the next couple of years. And I am leading that, which is just a wild turn in my career from I started freelancing in TTRPGs just a couple of years ago.
That's incredible, man. Congratulations. Sounds like big 2026s so far for both of you coming up. Al, how about you? What do you got going on?
Well, so I have written now 3 role-playing games of my own. I wrote the Sentience role-playing game, which is a 2D20 game. It is very adjacent to Star Trek, I would say, where players take on the roles of robots that were sent to terraform a planet, but they gain sentience before humanity returns. And now they're trying to deal with how do you set up a society knowing that humanity is going to show up at some point. But you also have the Society of Robots now. So that's a really good one. We had a big Kickstarter this year for it. And then I released Once Upon, which is a storybook role-playing game where you play storybook characters who are doing cool things, trying to get the readers to believe in you. And just last week, myself and Aaron Paulier, who also writes for Star Trek Adventures, we just released the Redacted role-playing game, which is basically a 1950s B-movie sci-fi game where the Roswell crash actually happened, and there's this complete shadow history that runs along ours, where alien technology and UFOs actually interact with our history. And so both Once Upon and Redacted use the Threshold system, which is a game system that I designed from the ground up. And yeah, we're excited to see where that goes.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds absolutely incredible. Wow. Amazing stuff coming from all 3 of you. And I don't have enough time to check it all out, but I'm going to anyway because it sounds epic. Holy crap, guys. Thank you. Like, seriously, thank you. To have all 3 of you to get to talk each aspect of this starter campaign has just been absolutely incredible.
Thank you,
really
Julian.
much appreciated.
We live to see what you and other creators like you do, and with these tools, it's so gratifying to us. You probably may not ever know.
No, I mean, and your words mean a lot as well. So thank you to all 3 of you. Al, Meric, Michael, thank you. That is going to do it for this episode. We are off next week for Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. I am going to plug one more time. Coming in December, we are probably going to record our session 0 for Cries of Mars. That is our upcoming original campaign written by me. That is going to be with the same team that you've seen on the starter campaign, which I will plug is available now. The Star Trek Adventures 2nd Edition starter campaign available on the Modiphius shop. Please go check it out if you are interested in getting into Star Trek Adventures at all. And then after we do session 0, we are going to be doing crew briefs with each crew member to kind of get to know their characters along the way before we have our first session. So that is all exciting stuff. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For Al, for Meric, for Michael, I am Julian. Live long and prosper, Majram. Have a good night.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.